Well, hey, we've been talking about, we're switching over months. So we've been going over a lot of different things in Coffee Experts Club. I'm actually going to give you a little tour because I want to show you guys something real cool, real quick. Let's do this. Let's go to here. So this is the membership area. If you haven't checked out the membership area yet, make sure that you check it out. Lots of good tools on the membership area. But what I wanted to point out for today's call is, so we've been talking about new locations. I gave you the new location spreadsheet. That was awesome. We had a great time looking at there. We talked about people. We talked about the gap analyzer and delegate and elevate and really making sure you're staying in your lanes. We did a month on marketing and took a deep dive with a couple of great specialists advocating for different styles of marketing and getting your message out there, and some guerrilla techniques and some traditional techniques. And that's a great section there. And then we've been going over finance this past month. So as we start the coming soon, we're going to move back into People 2.0, and we're going to kind of continue to build on each one of these foundations as we go longer and longer into Coffee Experts Club. So just consider it that way. Is if you've been watching so far, or if you've been on these calls and you thought, hey, I know some of this stuff, or some of this stuff seems like basic, just know we felt like we had to set some frameworks for the sake of building up. So you're going to start seeing People 2.0, Finance 2.0. You're going to see us continue to elevate. So we're actually moving into People 2.0 this round, but I want to show you this while we're here. And that is, if you guys haven't gone and joined the private Facebook group yet, I'd really encourage you to do that. You can just come in here. The only way you can get in is coming and clicking in this way. Obviously people go looking for it, but unless you purchased or are in this program, then you're not gonna be able to get in there. But the beauty of this private Facebook group is it's an opportunity for you to collaborate with each other. So if you've got ideas, you're facing something, you're like, hey, what are you guys using for X? And you can drop it into the group, and other coffee shop owners, other people managing coffee shops can come in and give you their content. Only the people here, closed group. So good spot for us to not only be your resource. This is Experts Club, not because we think we're the experts, it's because we consider all of us experts in this space, and we all have something to collectively offer. So I just wanted to call that out and let you know that was there. As we jump in to Experts Club today, we're going to go over incentive matrix. And so I'm going to pull up the tool. This will also be the free tool that we offer. So you guys are probably so sick of looking at spreadsheets. You're like, bro, just show me something else for the love of all things decent. But the reason we're going to go over this today is more on teaching you how to use it as a tool to coach from. We're going to give it to you as the free tool this month. I already told you that. On the membership area, you'll be able to see up at the top to download as a free tool. But we're going to walk through and show you the power behind it, and why we feel like it's a worthwhile tool and something you should think about rolling out. So we took a really deep dive the last few weeks in finance on the P&L. And really the take home for you as you think through finance is the magic really lives in cost of goods and in wages. So all we've done with the P&L on this incentive matrix, this is a tool that came out of some brainstorming sessions between Ben and I early on, and then we refined it over time. We rolled it out across the locations. We found it to be an amazing tool to motivate people. But a lot of times you don't want to show everybody everything, right? You don't want to just come and just like drop all the goods in front of your people and be like, hey, here's the entire P&L for the company, and you can see how profitable we are, and you can see what I'm spending on my personal jet, or whatever it is. Like, you don't want all your stuff in your P&L to probably be common knowledge. But what you should be giving people is the numbers that they can control to make you more profitable. And from my perspective, I think you should incentivize people based upon that. So as we talk about incentive matrix today, realize what we're really saying big picture. If you're one of those people that you're like, hey, Aaron, you're digging me way too deep in the weeds, like back it out a little bit and give me the 30,000 foot view. The big picture point of view is you want your people to be thinking like owners. You don't want your people to be thinking like employees. Employees show up and they're just clocking in. They don't care. Like they're not going to spend the extra time making sure that they, when they have downtime, clean all the nooks and crannies around the shop, do the extra sweeping, do the extra mopping, make sure they're doing your preventative maintenance on your machines. Like they're not going to do those things. They're just there for a paycheck. They're going to clock in. They're going to make sure they put cups out the window. Maybe they'll be in a good mood. Maybe they won't. Maybe they'll start drama with their coworkers. Maybe they won't. Like if you have just employees, and any of you that have run coffee know that's like the jam right there. Like you're pretty much just always dealing with drama all the time. It's like drama 101. But the way that you beat that down is, how can I empower my people to move from this mindset of just being an employee to being an owner? Like, because if you're entrepreneurial at all, your people are thinking like, I bet I could do this for myself someday, right? So I would say empower them. You're probably not going to want to keep all your people anyway. There's only so much elevation that you can create within your company, right? There's only so many Tashas out there, right? Like Tasha was a 1 in a million find at Human Being Reno, and she escalated up into this regional role where she's over all the stores now. But how many regional positions are you going to create? Like, how many stores does it require to get a second regional manager for Human Being Reno? I mean, we're going to have to open another 4 or 5 locations before we can even justify that. So it's like, there aren't a whole lot of upper level positions in coffee. So empower your people to elevate, and man, you get to benefit from them as they're coming up the ranks. And then when they leave, bless them as they go. Let it be a good connection with them. And then you've got that feel good of, not only am I in coffee to make money, not only am I in coffee to serve my customers, but also empower my people. But one of the best ways you can empower your people is making them think like an owner when it comes to numbers. Because you can have the friendliest faces, you can have the best music, like you can have the greatest car times, but if you aren't watching your numbers, it's very easy to allow slippage in your business. We talked about it last week. Coffee isn't a high profit business, it's a high cash flow business. So what you need to be thinking about is, how can I use the cash that comes in to further my endeavors, but also be very, very fiscally smart on making sure we keep that couch of profitability in there. So the incentive matrix is just 3 groups of numbers. It's your income, it's your cost of goods sold, and it's your wages, it's your labor. Those are the 3 things we feel like your people can directly control. You know, they can, I would advocate for probably the partnering, and we'll talk about it in Finance 2.0. We'll look at sales and reach goals. I think that there's a way that you can absolutely incentivize your people on how they can grow sales. I don't think that just is, they're just there sitting behind a window, and as people come through, they're happy, they're smiley, they can turn more car times. I think that there are ways that you can promote amongst local businesses. I think there are ways that you can get involved in local playing fields. I think that there's ways that you can get connected in local committees and local groups that would actually promote you as you give them benefit to promote you. So I think there's all kinds of cool ways that you can look for your people to multiply your income. You know, if you've got 175 people, like Roasters ended up getting to before they sold, 175 people have 175 worth of contacts, 175 people worth of contacts that are beyond just your own as the owner or the manager or the regional. And if you can turn those people into raving fans, as they're called, and get them out there propagating your stuff and selling your product for you. Obviously, they're not gonna be selling cups of coffee out of the back of their truck, but at the same time, they can advocate for people coming in. I think there's a way you can grow your top line. But once you've got this money coming in, you better really be watching the numbers south of the line. And these are the ones they can control. And we've spent a lot of time in COGS. So I'm not going to go through all the different line items. As a quick refresher, the biggest ones you're going to see, the biggest offenders are going to come from dry goods. Like that's all the ingredients, all the supplies. Milk can sometimes be a offender. Obviously, we talked about ways you can cut some of your cost with energy drinks. But also a great offender can be in your wages. And those are all things that your managers, your assistant managers, your employees that you're trying to train to be owners can all control. They can all be very, very tight on, what do we need? We talked about that. Like if you sink a bunch of your cash into inventory in your stores, what that just did was lock up your cash. It's not like you don't have that cash anymore. It just means you don't have it liquid. And like Ben was saying last week, in the little clip that we pushed out for the bullet points, is like one of the best ways to be thinking about future is being smart with the money that you've got. Be careful not to sink your assets into inventory. Like have enough inventory that you need to be there, but you want liquidity in your cash so that you can begin to open other stores. You can outlay other cash to be able to open new locations. And then wages is one where we've talked about in the past. We'll talk about it again today. You can control when it comes to them not falling asleep at the wheel with their scheduling, making sure that they're releasing people to go home when it's quiet, thinking things through, like when do we need runners, when do we not? So we've talked about everything north of this line, but what I'd like to talk about today on the matrix is this number and south. Like these are the numbers that we haven't touched yet. And this is what I feel like motivates people. So we all, as business owners, want people to engage in our culture, right? We want to have a strong culture, which I think is cool. Doing parties, right? Like taking people out to dinners. like having good team building things where Ben invites a bunch of teenage kids to beer gardens out in public arenas, which we learned about the hard way.
That's not a real thing. I never did that.
No, but you had to manage it. That's for sure.
Yeah.
You were the gatekeeper.
And keep them out of the beer garden.
You're like, hey, I need your ID before I let you in there. That was, I think it was the last time we ever did a beer garden at a company out.
Yes,
anyway,
yes, it was.
Long story short, like there are things you can do to build your culture and camaraderie and take big trips and do cool things. But really, I feel like what keeps people motivated to stay around is when you incentivize them. How can you incentivize them and show them that they're going to actually make more money if they make better decisions? You know, that it's not just going to go in the pockets of people. I was talking to a guy earlier this week, and he was saying that he was going back and forth with one of his operations guys. And he's like, well, we just want to see that all of our hard work isn't just going to end up with you having more profit. And I think that whether you have people that are that transparent and honest about it, that is what people can feel like, is that they're working so hard in the daily grind, and they're getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning and showing up and opening your windows with big smiles on. And you want to show them that that's not only benefiting you, who owns the business. Obviously, there should be benefit in that. It's your liability too. You're the one at risk. If everything goes sideways, they get to go on to the next coffee shop. You hold the bag. But at the same time, how can we incentivize people besides just their base rate, right? Besides just their tips? How can we give them some sort of incentive? So Ben and I came up with this tool where we shaved down to just income, COGS, and payroll. And from there, that turned into what we called an efficiency net. Like that was the total number, which is just subtracting from your gross profit your labor wages. So your gross profit is already doing the work for you of subtracting COGS from your total income. So we're going to take labor out of that now, and that's what we ended up calling efficiency net. Now, on a normal P&L, that's called net net income. There's a bunch of different terms you can call that. That's essentially what you take home at the end of the month. This is not that. This is efficiency net because it's just talking about these controls. So there's other numbers. This isn't what your stores are making. This store isn't 40% profitable. It's just taking from that total line item the items that your people can control and creating a new number called efficiency net. And then what we did was we developed what we called a Rev Share Baseline. That's how generous does your owner want to be? That's the easy term for that. Ben, let's have a conversation around that real quick, because that's a fun little story. So we came up with this efficiency net number, and then we went back to the owner and we said, hey, what do you want this number to be? Because the whole reason this conversation came up was the owner had said over and over again, hey, I want to give a piece back. I want to give a piece back. I want to give a piece back. So then, Ben, maybe you can tell us a little bit about the story behind this.
Yeah, I can't remember how long it was of back and forth of what is that piece back. And it was like, no, that's too big. Oh, no, that's too small. Yeah. Well, okay, can you guys just find the right number? We're like, we don't know what the right number is. You tell us what the right number is. And it was just, I think it was weeks of trying to figure out what is that perfect number. I think we got through about a couple months of it where that moved up and down. And finally he was like, okay, I'm now comfortable with this percentage. Because it was like the first month we did it and all these bonuses started going down. He was like, what's going on? Like, remember that thing we agreed to a few weeks ago? It's like, oh, okay. Yeah, but it is definitely, it just depends on, I would say how generous your owner wants to be, but how much of an investment they want to put down, because this is an investment in the daily goings on in the shop. And we ultimately said, hey, look, 5% of the efficiency net, that's a really good investment to make sure that your shops are rolling like a well-oiled machine all the time and that your people are happy.
Yep, that's good. So then all this tool does is it takes this, so this is it's broken down by each store, obviously. This shows you how much of your efficiency net of your gross it is, so that's telling you that number over your total income. So that's just a percentage. So you can across the board watch and see how are my stores doing with that number. The stores may all vary a little bit. So then what we did was we said this number is simply 5 times this number is what we came to for this. And then from that line is what we then began to peel off here. So then these numbers now are a controlled group. We're not going to give them 2% of an efficiency net because that's even bigger than our net profitability. You know, that because there are all kinds of liabilities that aren't in there, right? You don't have rent taken out of there yet. You don't have your utilities taken out of there yet. You don't have any kind of equipment cost taken out of there yet. You don't have any kind of professional fees taken out of there yet. All you're taking is your total income, subtracting out COGS and wages, creating this new number that's a higher percentage of profitability than your normal net would be. So that's why you create this like 5%. Hey, I only want to give 5% of the number that they can control. I only want to give 5% of the profitability that comes out of that. And then from that 5%, these all become very controlled numbers. Now it's 2% of the 5% is what your baristas get. And I would say we went through a couple iterations of this. It depends on how far down the chain you want to go. Do you want to incentivize your baristas? Or do you only want to incentivize your management team? Do you want to incentivize your assistant manager, or do you only want to incentivize the manager? You know, where we came to was the reason why we incentivized all the way down for this was we also, on the flip side, would also do sales bonuses, or what we called A3 bonuses, which was their checklists of how cleanly they were keeping their store, how their store was performing on some other different metrics. And we would gamify that and give somebody a bonus based on who won from that side of things. So the manager was already making money from that side of things. And so we wanted to give everybody across the organization an opportunity to have some sort of rev share, an opportunity to have some sort of ownership opportunity without truly giving up ownership, is what this is. You know, you only have a certain amount of ownership in a company, and you don't usually want it unless you're going to make it a public company, or you're going to make it a company that's owned by the employees. You probably don't want to give away a bunch of the ownership decisions, but this is a way to treat people like owners by letting them benefit from the profit. So baristas got 2%, store managers got 3%, sorry, assistant managers 3%, store managers got 5%. You can see, I mean, those aren't huge numbers, you know, but it is some number, and we broke that out as a line item on their pay stub so they could see, oh, that's my ownership percentage, or that's my incentive matrix, that's my incentive to do that. And also, if this number drops, so do these numbers, you know. So if their COGS, if they fell asleep on their wages, that's going to affect what their efficiency net is, which is going to have a direct implication on everybody making money. So the reason why you want your people to be thinking about how much they're using in COGS or how much they're using in their wages is because it's going to absolutely impact what they're going to make. From the regional manager further south, everybody made a percentage off of multiple stores. So we had 3 different regional managers in this iteration for this business. So you'll notice these stores here were part of this region. This regional manager had these, and then this regional manager had a few others. So we tried to break it up evenly across the board so that nobody had, you know, the big cash cow cafe, you know, drive-throughs. Nobody had all 3 of those in their region. We tried to make it really fair. And you can see, you know, that's almost across the board, a pretty even number. But that way, when the store is performing well, everybody downstream also benefits. Not only the barista, the store manager, the assistant manager, but also the region manager. And then what we created was a district manager position. This can also be called upper management. It depends on how infrastructured your company is, but this district manager takes a piece of everyone's. So this is 2% of that 5%, but he's going to make that 2% all the way across the board for all locations. So you see the district manager gets a bigger cut. But the reason why we went with this kind of a model is we felt like it's good for everybody to celebrate together. You know, I feel like I say it a lot, but rising tides raise all ships. You know what I mean? That if we succeed and are more and more profitable, that's not just the owner's profitability, that's all of our profitability. We all get a cut out of that. And when we don't perform well, that also affects all of us. You know, this isn't just a place where I can come and punch in, punch out, but it's something that has an impact on everybody. So I feel like I've gone through a lot of spreadsheets and I've done a lot of talking. Ben or Drew, do you have things you want to talk about? I know, Ben, you're going to talk a little about the nuts and bolts, and then Drew, you're going to speak a little bit to incentivization of people.
Yeah, the nuts and bolts were, I mean, putting this together took a lot of time. I think mostly also just trying to decide and decipher what the owner was looking for when we put this together. He basically came at us with 3 problems that we were wanting this to solve. A, how do we get the employees to stop throwing milk on the ground? How do we get them to stop throwing whole sleeves of cups away? How do we get the manager to pay attention when, their night closing employee is staying 2 hours extra because they just want to take their time. Like, so that was one problem. Two other problems we were having was turnover rate and employees moving up the ladder. I mean, every coffee shop knows they have an awesome manager, and that manager decides to, move on to another career. And you're like, holy crap, I don't have anybody in the wings right now. Who am I going to get to run the shop now? Hopefully the assistant manager can make that happen. But if you don't have an assistant manager or a good assistant manager, kind of stuck floating. For us, it was, 15, 16 stores. It was like, that was starting to become like a constant issue. We're like, okay, who's the next one? So this was not only to incentivize them paying attention to their numbers, but we shared these percentages with all of the employees in the hopes that it would also incentivize people wanting to move up the ladder. It was actually something we went over and in their new employee orientations was, here's your pay, here's your bonus rate once you hit the incentive matrix, and here's what you can expect if you move on in a career with us as a company. You start at this base percentage for rev share, and as you increase positions, you become an assistant manager, you become a store manager, that increases. So then we're encouraging employees to move up the chain as managers and assistant managers. And then the other thing it helped solve was retention rate. This incentive matrix kicked in at your 1 year anniversary. So it was like something that we could keep these employees looking forward to. And then at 1 year, day 365, we track their hire dates and our HR stuff. And once they hit it, the next month that bonus kicks in, and they're like, yeah, I finally got my incentive matrix bonus. It was a big piece of what they would look forward to a lot. They're like, when's my anniversary coming up? When's my anniversary coming up? Yes, now I get my bonus. And then they're in this program that sort of encourages them to stay with the company, grow with the company, and then, like Aaron was saying, think like an owner. So it was a threefold thing that really I think worked out a lot. There was some stores you could tell where the manager was really like, they were really all in on it, and they ran tight just because they were always talking about, okay guys, our monthly bonus, monthly bonus, monthly bonus. And those shops weren't throwing out whole sleeves of cups all the time. The manager was paying attention to hours. The baristas were excited to move up into newer positions. It was really I'm really proud of it. I think we could have even leveraged it more just because it was such a powerful tool. And the baristas and the employees all loved it. Practically, from the nuts and bolts side, as long as you have a good HR tracker, as long as you're keeping track of your employees' hire dates, their promotions, this became a really easy tool to just sort of replicate every month along with payroll. It's really nice.
Awesome. Drew, you want to maybe talk about incentivizing? Like, I know that from your perspective, I'm going to turn off the screen just for a minute so we can talk, and then we can come back to the screen so that we're not just looking at numbers the whole time. You want to talk maybe just about motivating people? I know that your career has largely been motivating people, and how do you keep people motivated? And so maybe can you speak to that when it comes to incentivization?
Yeah, like Ben said, it kind of created an air of how precise can we get in everything that we do. And when you first start out doing something like making coffee, you don't realize what an art form it can become if you really focus on these little details. But precision became something to be celebrated when we started celebrating each other's perfect pours, when you're not wasting, even 2, 3, 4, 5 ounces of milk. They add up after an entire day. So perfect pours would be celebrated. Obviously, high cup sales, and how many cups can we sell, and how many people do we really need to do stuff like this? It created a nice culture of celebration around precision. And not only that, it created a nice competition and checks and balances between managers and baristas, because those baristas wouldn't let those managers miss their reviews. Yeah. The baristas knew when their reviews were coming.
Yeah.
And they knew exactly what it meant to get a high score on your review. And they knew exactly the steps they needed to take to get to where they wanted to be. So when I first started, I told these guys earlier today, I remember in orientation, they were telling me, hey, you can make this amount of money. It's possible some baristas make this amount of money if you cover shifts and you make X amount of tips. So incentivization, it can start as soon as orientation with your baristas, just putting numbers out in front of them and making it something that is within their hands to actually control their rate of growth. And that's something that I really love about coffee, is that it is a training ground for so many different types of skills. And when you give people the skills to manage their lives, and hopefully it bleeds into their actual lives. But what I've noticed is it creates a lot of consistency within the store. It creates a lot of peer-to-peer checks and balances. They check each other. They teach each other. We all obviously teach each other. I've learned so many things from baristas while I've been on bar. And it comes, I think, from the point of view that if we share our knowledge, you know, we all grow together, and everybody was trying to get those. It does boil down to making more money on you know, at the end of the day. But it can create so much more upstream effects of diligence and consistency and inspiration. And the goal was always to have inspired people, because inspired people in the coffee shop, they can create raving fans with the customers, just because the nature of the business is so relational. And when customers come through, they're really looking for a face that they can rely on. And when your baristas are inspired, that's exactly what they become. So the tool, it did become very important as far as like Ben said, the nuts and bolts, but the motivation and the amount of like velocity that we gained from doing stuff like this, just in the skill level, it was immense. It was definitely priceless.
It's awesome. Corey, I know you really advocate for a lot of like empowering people. Do you have any examples or stories that you'd like to share as far as when it comes to, did you guys do much with incentivization? Did you guys do much with, how did you keep people motivated beyond just slinging coffee? Like where did that come from for you?
Yeah, I mean, the thought that came to my mind is, you know, back when we were talking people 1.0, you know, we were saying, you know, challenging with that aspect of be as generous as you possibly can.
Yeah.
And you might be in a position where you're just starting out.
Yeah.
Or maybe that cash flow isn't there. And that's what our story was. Our first year, we were putting money into it each month. So any incentive was just causing that debt, you know, each month.
Yeah.
So we had to take that into consideration. But you know, you might be in a position where you say, I can't afford to do this, but I would challenge you and say, you can't afford not to do something.
Yeah.
And you start out small with the goal of continuing to grow this kind of incentive.
Yeah.
So you've got to start somewhere, and initially it may cost you, but you will find that script will flip, I think, quicker, because the more that you can get that owner mindset and that team mentality, like, hey, we get to achieve this together, the quicker you're going to rise in success, the quicker you're going to rise in building that influence that you have within the community that you're in. The other thing I think is brilliant behind this, and you know, I would throw out another challenge of, don't set up an incentive that only incentivizes your management. It's got to be a full team thing, because the whole team succeeds together or they fail together, you know? So setting up this kind of incentive, I think like this will preach, you know, I like, this is it. But the other thing I think that this introduces is that your teams are so creative. And this is what I found within our team. And I mean, unfortunately, our story, we only had our team 2 years. But we were just starting to get to this point of introducing these kinds of things. But your team will start getting creative. So you have this general incentive, but now they're gonna say, okay, here's our daily challenge, here's our weekly challenge, here's our monthly challenge. So I can see some real, you know, inter-team competition going on and challenging one another within this kind of incentive. But I am a fan of having that team mindset. Even as you pointed out, Aaron, you don't want employees. Like, you don't want employees. The definition I've heard of an employee is that they show up late, they leave early, and they steal while they're there. Whereas as a team member, like they function as a team. They understand that we succeed as a team or we fail as a team. So giving them this kind of incentive offers that kind of ownership and that kind of responsibility. So for me, I was within a franchise system. So literally every cup that went into the garbage can, like, grieved my soul, because that one cup costs more than, you know, that one cup cost me what 20 cups would cost you, you know? So really being mindful of that, every little thing adds up really quick. Every bad shot that is pulled adds up really quick. Every cup that's thrown away adds up really quick. You know, every straw that ends up on the ground, like, there's just more of an awareness with this kind of incentive setup.
That's good.
Yeah, I will say it's very hard to to get, especially in the coffee industry where your employee base is so young, it's very hard to get 18-year-olds to worry about throwing away a single cup, because it's just like, I do that at home all the time. I'll do it here at work. But this was a great way to be like, no, this you can actually see, like, because your incentive bonus was actually lower last month because you guys wasted a whole lot of cogs. And I would actually, when we first started introducing this, I would have baristas sending me messages, managers sending me messages saying, why was our incentive so low this month? Why was our bonus so much lower than last month? And I go, well, you guys' hours were really high, or your cost of goods were really high. And they start going, oh, and you start seeing light bulbs go on. Those managers start paying attention to every single little cup. And
Well, I have a question is, with the way that this was set up, and you guys, the way that you guys ran it, was there an opportunity kind of like in the moment to see where they were at in the course of that month, or was it kind of at the end of the month they would find out?
I think that the pain point,
yeah,
the pain point with anything that's built off your P&Ls is you're kind of dependent on your how fast your accountant could turn it, and then you were always traveling 1 month in retro. I think that was the downside. We did control other metrics. We tried to set that with other metrics that were operating more in real time. Like, I feel like you can obviously control your labor more in real time based upon your scheduling tools, and knowing what you're shooting towards. You can control your gross sales. You're watching those grow every single day. You can control some of the performance metrics, but when it comes to some of the costs and spends, then you're really up to how much, the vendor's how fast they send you your invoices, how quickly your accountant can turn your P&Ls, and then it turns into the efficiency metrics. That's a good question though, Corey. That's good.
Yeah, ideally it was about building, sort of creating a culture of, like Drew said, of precision, like them constantly thinking about, what are my cost of goods? Managers like always thinking about not over ordering, not overspending, until it did create that sort of air of precision in those shops. And some of the top cafes, those managers were tight. They had gotten really tight with their ordering, really tight with their hours, really good, like Drew was saying, really good at being like, do we really need another employee right now? Like, I know it's nice, but do I need you? No, I don't think I need you. Like, you're affecting our bonus at the end of the month. But not only that, like we would have, everybody knows that coffee shop employees are notoriously bad salesmen, unless it's a cup of coffee. Like if you try to get them to like sell a hydro flask or sell a shirt, they're not salesmen. Like we sell cups of coffee and we love doing what we're doing, and you're here to buy that from us. But the minute we would start doing merch drops, we would have the top stores competing for who got most of the merch that went out when we do a drop. So we'd have, our managers who were really tight about saying, no, send me those extra cups. They're not going to sell these cups. Just send them to me. We'll push them out. I want to see that at the end of the month of my bonus. And so that sort of competition you were talking about, we'd have managers competing for, okay, guys, we're doing a hydro flask drop of 2,000 hydro flasks, and you'd have managers going, okay, send an extra 500 to me, send an extra 100 to me. We'll push them out. We'll sell them, and we'll get the bonus at the end of the month. It turned 18-year-old coffee kids into salesmen, which is actually really funny to see.
Yeah, that's good. I think too, I think anytime that you can gamify anything, I think you should, so going back, I'll share the screen again. When we first started rolling this out, Ben and I were trying to be really tricky about it, where we would just like, no, just send each manager his own stuff. Like, there's no reason for everybody to see everybody's stuff. Maybe it makes some people feel uncomfortable, or maybe because what I would do was we would go through, I'd get the P&L, and that's what these up here are for. I'd get the P&L from the bookkeeper. I would go through and I'd highlight things that I'm like, hey, her name was Heather. Hey, Heather, is this the correct number for frat pounder for this store? Because I need to coach on it, and I need to know, hey, it looks a little bit out of skew. The whole reason why we ran these in different colors is so that I could look across the board and say 1%, 0.9%, 0.8%, 0.9%, all the way across. It shows you really quickly like who's out of line. And then I would usually start with the accountant and say, hey, are we sure that that's the right number? Are we sure that the metrics are right? Are we sure that someone has been out of there? And typically numbers are off for two reasons. Either there was an error in the accounting, or there was an error in whoever was, like doing the order, so I want to make sure I'm correcting the right person. Once that I would make that correction and make sure that we were dealing with the right numbers, then I'd move to this orange. And in that orange, and the example would be, so I would go like this, and I'd look across the board and I would say, okay, so it looks like a pretty average number is between 12 and 14. just looking across the board. So sometimes you need to ask yourself, like, low isn't always better. You know what I mean? So I'm looking for low numbers too. Like, okay, so wait a minute. So we had a total income of 133 and 115. And then these guys spent 17 and these guys spent 12. Does that make sense? You know, does this, 17, 18,000 differential justify, $5,400 change in dry goods, because 10% feels really low. And when you're looking at every other store in the company and nobody else is that low, that typically means that this person is going to experience a spike next month because they under ordered this month, which means they'll over order next month. And we're trying to stay away from the swells, right? Because if they're under ordering, that may make them feel really good this month, but it means they're going to gouge themselves next month when they over order and they're going to be way out of alignment. So I would go through and I would drop in an orange indication here, and then I would communicate with the regional, so I would drop in here and say, let's use Tasha in this example. Tasha, this is too low. Please coach accordingly. And then Tasha would be able to pull up the incentive matrix at her next one-on-one with that manager and say, hey, could we take a look at your dry goods and how you're doing your dry goods? Because I noticed this month that you're substantially lower than any of the rest of the stores by way of percentage. And I want to make sure that we're taking a look at that. So initially, when Ben and I started this, we started breaking off the store. So I only want that manager to see it because it's kind of embarrassing if we're going to coach them. But what we found was, no, let everybody see everything, because it's created this real culture of they didn't want to get caught. They didn't want everybody to see that their number was the one that was down or up. And so they would drill down with a sharper pencil all the more because they knew they didn't want to see this sheet with orange next to their store's name. Like, that's not what they want to see from the regional, from all the way down, right? Anybody that's going to benefit from this thing, regional down to the manager, down to the assistant, down to the barista, like they all wanted to know their store was performing great. And so we just realized that anytime that you can create a crowd source where everybody recognizes the numbers, is watching the numbers, and there's that accountability without shaming, right? We're not trying to shame people. Like, a shaming culture doesn't work anywhere, but just like calling each other out when they're doing awesome, encouraging each other when they do well, and then doing it in a way that's gamified. So then what we would do is when we would roll out the bonuses, when we would roll out different things, we'd be like, hey, this store, you guys killed it this month. Well done. And then maybe we would, give them a little extra bonus for achieving even better. So I think that there's some cool stuff that you can do when you let everybody see the numbers. And sometimes that feels a little bit uncomfortable, but at the same time, it really does work for competition. Especially, I know, Tasha, you're a very competitive sort, so you can appreciate that kind of thing. Like, you want to win,
It also encouraged the baristas to move into stores that were higher performing stores.
Mm-hmm.
Created a culture of baristas going, no, I want to go to the busier store. I want to get better. I want to go work the morning shift at that busiest store because I'm seeing the bonuses that they're making on the incentive matrix. And if I get better, I can move over to this store, this high performing store, and be getting this bonus too. So it's just creating this culture of like, everybody wants to increase because everybody can see how well everybody else is doing. And if you're doing better than me, well, the only person that can change that is our team in our store. So we're going to either change it, or I'm going to try and get to that higher performing store and really get the bonus out. So it was really sort of it was a cool culture of everybody trying to increase all the time, which was great.
Yeah, it's like working with training wheels, at first, until the really good people actually get it and they don't really need to use it. They just kind of use it to brag about how good they are. But at first, you definitely need like bumpers, when you go bowling until you can throw strikes.
Drew, talk about a little bit. I feel like you're a great success story of coming up all the way from barista, all the way working up the ranks at different locations, getting up to the highest grossing store that Roasters had, then bouncing up into regional manager and overseeing, 7 locations before we pared it down. We made it a little bit more doable by raising up another regional manager. Maybe talk about escalating and how you feel like incentives helped you in that process.
It helped me specifically because one of my favorite parts about my job in management was giving people information, coaching them, passing on everything that I could possibly pass on. And it showed me okay, so where am I at this month? What am I lacking in this month? Okay, let me hone down on exactly which week I was lacking. okay, what shift I was lacking. Okay, who was working this shift? Okay, what was the thing we were lacking on? Well, let me coach these people specifically. So it helped me hone in on exactly what I could talk to and who I could talk to about what they needed, rather than just kind of a broad reaching statement to the whole store about something we need to fix and be better at. I found that to be a lot more effective to be able to give specific coachings. For me personally, I remember when Ben pulled me aside and he's like, "Hey man, everything's great, but this one thing you really got to just a mess. What are you doing?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm focusing on 100 million other things. What do you mean I need to make my tallies better?" But it was good. It's like, it showed me personally what I needed to work on. And of course, that's always beneficial. It might not always feel good, but it's necessary. So, I mean, yeah, moving up slowly. We started with zero accountability. I remember staying 2 hours just to close the store because I thought that I was just fine to do. Way back in the day, I'd be scrubbing everything and wiping everything down, dusting the lampshades or whatever we had in there, all the way to the point of, okay, well, now there's accountability. And through the entire process, I watched the skill level and the inspiration level change for literally everybody around me. So when you hold people to a high standard, it's pretty much telling them that you believe in them, that they can achieve these high standards. And all people really need to succeed is to be told that by people that they're around. So yeah. It gave me the ability to tell everybody, "Hey, you're awesome. And look, you can do this. Let's do this together."
Yeah. I love that. Tasha, I feel like we always do all the talking. How could you tell? I feel like we've got to work with each other pretty closely the last 4 months or so, since we started down at Human Being Reno. Do you want to tell us just a little bit about your escalation within Human Being Reno? I know you started as just a barista, right? Like, and how did you move your way up, and what did you feel like made you want to move your way up?
Yeah, I started as a little barista that was going to enroll into nursing school and had no drive about staying for a long time. It was just a convenient job and fun to be around. And then all of a sudden the assistant manager role came in, and I'm just a natural leader, want to take charge. So the moment I got in there, people were like, "How long have you worked here?" And I was like, "Oh, a week." And they were like, "Who are you?" I was like, "No, that's how you do it. I was taught this way. Why are you doing it like that?" And so it was just like that leadership that was lacking there. I just naturally had. And so I kind of just took it in my own lap to run with it. And the boss at the time was like, "Great, I'll get paid and you do the work. That sounds great." But no, it was more so I wanted to move up. I wanted the responsibility. I knew I was good at it. And I felt I was the person that could help everyone around me by giving them that support, because that's what the stand really needed, was just support. Money drives me. So I'm all about bonuses and incentives and anything we can do. Competitions were super big. I never lost a competition until I wasn't allowed to compete in them anymore. So yes, I mean, those little factors are definitely what moved me. And then once I became the assistant manager, I was like, okay, well, when's the next stand? Because I knew that that's how it worked. I knew that, the next stand opened up, and that's when a manager role opened up. There was no way to do it unless somebody was leaving, and people didn't leave. That's not how it worked. When I came in, managers had been around for 5 years. And I was like, well, I'm not waiting 5 years. So get on it. Let's open this stand. Whatever you need from me, I'll do it. So it just worked out really well. They moved into a regional role, and I ended up taking over that stand. And then the regional ended up moving on to bigger things, and I became regional. And then we opened 2 stands in my first year. And now I'm running 4 with the hopes of running 15 here soon.
That's right. And 5, we're coming 5 here soon by end of year, right? We're shooting for it. And number 6 is on your window too. I think that there's some stuff coming at Human Being Reno right now. So I think
but I think just being that support was huge. And I think that from the leadership down, you have to be that support, and starting everything on top of any incentive you can do is crucial. Like Corey said, I think you have to make it happen. It's more damage for you not to do those things. And it speaks to the culture. And that's kind of what we've tried to turn the page on this last 4 months. And I feel like we're doing a great job.
Yeah, I love that.
Aaron, I'm glad that Tasha shared her story, because that was one thing that came to my mind, is that this kind of incentive program that you introduced to your team is a great way to surface those natural leaders, just like it did for her. Like, you want to find out who your leaders are on the team. They're going to be the ones that are rallying the entire team to be motivated to push towards getting this bigger incentive. And those are the leaders that you want in those key roles. So this is a great way to find out who are the leaders within your team. There's one thing that we did gamify in our store, and I won it every single month I was on bar. And that was the most wrongly made drinks.
Oh, dang it.
Yeah, I love that, Corey. I think it's sometimes hard to scout out who those people are unless they're very vocal like me,
Yep.
and just are going to straight up tell you, look, this is what I'm here to do, and I'm going to make it happen. And, I think that you're right. This is a great way to see who cares and who's willing to change their patterns for the better of the business and come forward.
Yeah, I mean, the definition of a leader is look behind you. Are there people actually following your lead? So as you in that, upper management role or ownership role, like for you to have that one step back and see who within that group are people rallying under through their leadership, like that's who you want to cue in on. That's who you want to start making those investments in and giving them those opportunities to step up in those management and leadership roles.
Totally.
Wow. I think, everybody always like glorifies the owner. I mean, like it's, obviously they make the most money. Obviously they had the brainchild to get this thing, the whole thing going or whatever. But what I found working with a lot of different owners and leaders is they're a lot of times not the smartest one in the room. Like as far, everybody always assumes like that guy, well, it was his idea or he was the one out in front, but like a good leader collects people that are better than them at things for the sake of using their brains to create this collective excellence, So I think that even as as we escalate people up into these things, realizing the best thing we could do is create a catalyst for new people to rise up with new ideas, because that's how this thing's going to keep getting better and better. It's not going to keep coming from the one guy at the top. How stressful is it for an owner to feel like they've got to come up with all the good ideas, or they've got to come up with where they're going to open the next locations, or they got to come up with like this new efficiency. They've been so far off bar a lot of times that it's like there's no way that they could create new efficiencies on bar, but how can we empower our people to think about, hey, if we cut this out, we made it, Human Being Reno made a decision, hey, let's cut this out of the menu. Was scones. You guys cut your scones, Tosh? And it was like, we're just not selling enough of them. The price point isn't right. And it's just causing more work. And it's just a line item we don't need. And it was more expensive from the vendor. Let's just cut it. And I think that how can somebody that's this far removed make a decision like that? You can't. It's got to be somebody that's on the ground that understands what's coming and going, and like the kinds of people that you're going to upset versus not upset. If you do cut that, you need your people that have an ear to the ground to help you make those decisions. And I think that making them understand that they're valuable by showing them some sort of escalation that comes with benefit. It's not just attaboys, but it's like an attaboy and something they can go be proud of, tell their mom about, hey, we were the top scorer on the efficiency, I made this much of a bonus this month. Like people want something to brag about to the people that love them, and giving them that opportunity too. So I think it's invaluable opportunity.